who Cheney slams for bad-mouthing the Bush administration. Now, yesterday, Secretary Powell, he responded on CBS's Face the Nation.
Mr. Cheney has had a long and distinguished career, and I hope in his book that's what he will focus on, not these cheap shots that he's taking at me and other members of the administration who served to the best of our ability for President Bush.
So you just label them flatly cheap shots.
Well, yeah, they are cheap shots. He says that I went out of my way not to present my positions to the president, but to take them outside of the administration. That's nonsense. Who went to the United Nations and, regrettably, with a lot of false information? It was me. It wasn't Mr. Cheney. I supported the president.
So who has the best of the argument? Joining me now with analysis, former speechwriter for President George W. Bush, Mark Thiessen, and Daily Beast columnist, Fox News political analyst Kirsten Powers. Guys, welcome back. Well, I've read the book. It's coming out tomorrow, and I signed a disclaimer saying that I wasn't allowed to disclose its contents, but I know the contents. So, Mark, I'll work around the edges here. Okay. And I went out to Jackson Hole. We're going to air the interview with the vice president tomorrow, and then we're going to have a live audience on Thursday. Here's my point, though, is that Richard Armitage knew, absolutely knew, that he was the one that had leaked the information. He didn't say anything. And from all accounts now, we know that Colin Powell knew that it was Richard Armitage. Now, meanwhile, we have a prosecutor, special prosecutor, Patrick Fitzgerald, is bringing all these people in, some that really don't make a lot of money. They're having to hire lawyers. Karl Rove is taken to the edge of worrying about being indicted. Scooter Libby, I think, unfairly was brought up on charges. And I'm looking at all this, I'm saying, why didn't these men speak out? That's a legitimate criticism. Why didn't Colin Powell and Armitage say, no, it was me, it was Richard? Why didn't they do that?
That's exactly right. Look, Cheney points out something very, very simple in that book. He says that a few days after Powell learned that Armitage, his deputy, was the one who had leaked Valerie Plame's name, he sat next to the President of the United States in a cabinet meeting while the press corps was brought in and barraged him with questions as to who was responsible for the leak. And the President stood there and took that barrage and said, I want to get down to the truth. And right next to him was the man who knew the truth, who knew that his own deputy had caused this entire crisis, and he never told the President of the United States. And that, as you point out, had consequences. It had consequences for Karl Rove. It had consequences for Scooter. It had consequences for the President. They were all ensnared in an investigation that was started by his deputy.
It would have ended.
It would have ended.
You know, Kirsten, this might actually be something you and I agree on. A lot of times, you know, these special prosecutors are set up. As far as I was concerned in the case of Scooter Libby, as soon as they know where the name Valerie Plame came from, and the prosecutor knew from day one, I don't think the investigation was over, and yet they continued in this. And I wouldn't want a Democrat to have to go through this. I wouldn't want staffers to have to go through this. I don't want this. Is absolutely unnecessary. And for the people that knew and didn't say anything, I find that unconscionable.
Yeah, I mean, we do agree on the idea. I think that often these prosecutions turn into fishing expeditions where they just try to catch people
in a perjury trap
and basically get them under oath and get them tripped up, and they contradict themselves, and the next thing you know, they're being impeached, for example, and you know, or in Scooter Libby's case, he's going to jail.
I mean, like if they have sex with an intern?
I do have an issue with that, so we agree on that, Sean. I think that Colin Powell's defense in this situation is that as soon as they found out that he was the one who that Armitage was the one who originally was the leak, that they immediately called the FBI. The FBI came in, and they were told not to tell anybody. That's his defense. And so, you know, they had done what they felt, you know, they were supposed to do.
How about telling his boss? How about telling, you know?
He's saying he was told not to tell anybody. So, you know, there's an ongoing investigation. You're often counseled not to, you know, share information. So that's his defense.
Mark?
But he also said that he told the President's counsel, Gonzalez, but he didn't really tell him. He just told him that he had information. But the point is, look, Colin Powell sat by while the critics of the President went for years saying that Bush had lied and sent a war in Iraq, and that he had leaked this stuff. He gave ammunition to the President's critics during a time of war that undermined him as commander-in-chief in a critical time of the war in Iraq. He gave ammunition to his critics as the 2004 election was going on, and his silence as he sat by that could have stopped this investigation harmed the lives of a lot of people. I mean, Scooter Libby's life has been changed forever because of this.
We're going to we'll have Dick Cheney on the program tomorrow, and then a special live audience show with the former vice president on Thursday night. Guys, thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Sean.
All right, Greta's, by the way, one of the 75 most powerful, richest women in America. Look at that. I'm surprised you